It's 4 in the afternoon on Monday, October 27th here in Seoul. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Hwang Ji-hye filling in for Laah Hyun-kyung. The prospects for a planned round of high-level talks between the two Koreas remain very much in doubt. South Korea has proposed to meet this Thursday, but instead of giving an answer to the offer, North Korea has again protested the anti-Pyongyang leaflet campaigns by South Korean activists. Hwang Sung-hee reports.
Responding to North Korea's protest against the latest anti-Pyongyang leaflet campaign, South Korea on Monday urged the North to come to their planned high-level talks.
We maintain the stance that the government has no legal grounds to ban activities by civic groups. North Korea should give its answer to our proposed date and place for the second round of high-level talks, which the two Koreas have previously agreed on.
2 weeks have passed since South Korea proposed to hold the second round of talks on October 30th at the border village of Panmunjom. Remaining mum on that offer, the North sent a message to South Korea's presidential office of Cheongwade early Sunday morning, protesting the latest anti-Pyongyang leaflet campaign. The North claimed although the daytime launch of the leaflets had been scrapped Saturday, the South Korean government turned a blind eye to a group of activists who sent about 20,000 leaflets at night. It said South Korea does not appreciate its efforts to mend inter-Korean ties and warned the high-level talks will not be held under such an atmosphere. Experts remain divided on whether North Korea will come to the negotiating table. Some say the high-level talks could be postponed until Seoul lays out a concrete solution to prevent the leaflet campaigns, while others expect the North to show up at least in early November. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
And now the trial for those responsible for April's tragic Seoul ferry disaster continues. And later today, prosecutors are expected to demand either the death penalty or life imprisonment for the captain and some other key crew members who have been charged with negligent homicide. Kwon So-ah has the details.
More than 6 months have passed since the tragic Seoul ferry accident that left more than 300 passengers dead or missing, and prosecutors are deliberating penalties for 15 crew members accused of fleeing the ship without evacuating passengers, but instructing them to stay put in their cabins. State prosecutors indicted Seoul ferry captain Lee Jun-seok and other 3 senior crew members in May on charges of murder by willful negligence, the strongest punishment for which is the death penalty. Prosecutors say some of the crew members have confessed that they did not attempt to save passengers because they themselves wanted to survive. That includes Captain Lee, who has admitted to all of the charges against him, with the exception of murder, and says he wants to be punished. 2 other key crew members could be sentenced to life in prison, and 9 could be handed prison sentences of up to 45 years for negligence of duty and violation of maritime law, which demands they should have been the last to leave the ship. The families of the victims are expected to be in the gallery for today's session, some of whom had earlier pleaded for the crew members to be charged with the maximum penalty possible by law. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Now, over in Ukraine, exit poll results from Sunday's parliamentary elections there show that the pro-Europe bloc, led by President Petro Poroshenko allies, has scored a big win. Our Connie Lee has the details.
It's an overwhelming win for pro-Western parties in Ukraine's parliamentary elections. Citing exit polls on Sunday evening, Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko declared victory, saying more than 3/4 of voters backed his political bloc.
The results of the election bring the firm victory of all democratic, pro-European, pro-Ukrainian forces. And that gives us a lot of opportunity to develop, to provide the reform.
Official results of the election are expected Monday, but the sweeping victory in exit polls shows that voters supported Poroshenko's plans to end a separatist conflict and follow through with democratic reforms. President Poroshenko said he will start the talks on forging a new coalition in parliament come Monday.
I'm sure that in order not to lose time, coalition talks will start tomorrow. And I think leaders of all parties will be invited to join them.
The election comes 7 months after the revolution in Ukraine that took down former President Viktor Yanukovych, and during a time when parts of eastern Ukraine remain under the unofficial control of pro-Russia separatists. However, the voting shows that the country is trying to steer clear of Russia and take a pro-European path instead. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
And from West Africa to the United States and Europe, cases of Ebola are spreading around the globe, as are the fears. Here in Asia, nations are taking measures to prevent an outbreak while also preparing for a worst-case scenario. Connie Kim reports.
Fears of a possible Ebola outbreak in Asia have begun to spread following confirmation that healthcare workers in the United States and Spain have contracted the virus after treating patients in West Africa. Compounding concerns are the travel habits of those living in the three countries hardest hit by Ebola. Analyzing data dating back to the start of last year, medical journal Lancet says China and India were among the top 15 travel destinations for people from Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. More than 8,600 people have traveled to the southern Chinese province of Guangdong Province from West Africa since late August. And acknowledging the need to bolster measures, China's National Health and Family Planning Commission called for medical institutions to upgrade infection control precautions by the end of October. Over in India, officials related to health, civil aviation, and shipping convened this month to prepare for a possible Ebola outbreak. India, currently the world's second most populous country, has less than 1/5 the number of hospital beds compared to China per 1,000 people. Korea is also getting ready for a worst-case scenario, following an announcement last week of plans to deploy medics to West Africa to help with efforts there. The health ministry pledged to designate 2 additional hospitals for the diagnosis and treatment of Ebola, bringing the total to 19. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
The U.S. Federal Reserve is expected to announce an end to its multi-billion-dollar bond buying program when it meets later this week. The International Monetary Fund says that could deal quite a blow to the local economy, adding, however, that it's too soon to hit the panic button. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
The International Monetary Fund says Korea could take the heaviest blow among the countries in Asia if the U.S. exit from quantitative easing sparks a sudden rise in U.S. interest rates. Romain Duval, the IMF's head of the Regional Studies Division of the Asia-Pacific Department, says that it is quite possible that Asia's fourth largest economy will experience a shock as a result of the changes in U.S. monetary policy because Korea is vulnerable to external shifts. He says the impact will likely lead to a capital flight and a slowdown in exports to the United States. The IMF predicts Korea's growth rate could drop by nearly 1 percentage point if the U.S. interest rate were to rise suddenly, a move that's expected if the U.S. Federal Reserve announces an end to its multi-billion-dollar bond buying program when it meets later this week. Other Asian countries are likely to experience smaller changes. India's growth rate is expected to drop by less than 0.2 percentage point. But despite the dismal outlook for Korea, Duvall says there's no need to panic just yet. The effects of the impact will be minimized because Seoul is able to utilize its financial and monetary policies to deal with external changes. Duvall says it all comes down to how the Korean government handles the effects of the rise in the U.S. interest rate, saying it should pursue austerity measures and let its currency depreciate in the event of capital outflows. The IMF says the Korean economy could drop into the low 3% range following a U.S. interest rate hike, while Seoul projects the economy will grow to around 4% next year. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
But it looks like some top economic policymakers here in Korea have brushed aside the IMF's concerns about the Korean economy. Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol says that a drastic hike in U.S. interest rates is unlikely, saying the U.S. Federal Reserve is fully aware of the possible impact of the move. Korea's Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan also says only a limited amount of capital outflow will occur in the country, even if the U.S. raises its key interest rates, saying the Korean economy is different from that of emerging markets. To Europe now for some business news. A highly anticipated stress test on the Eurozone's banks has shown that most of the continent's large banks would be able to weather a sharp economic downturn. The European Central Bank announced on Sunday that 25 of the region's 130 biggest banks had failed the landmark stress test at the end of last year, but that most have since plugged their capital holes. It said the most problematic banks were found in Italy, Cyprus, and Greece, with some $12.7 billion in funds to raise. The test comes ahead of the ECB's expanded supervision of the banks due to begin next month. Now, a recent report says North Korea's labor productivity is more than 30 years behind that of South Korea's. According to the Hyundai Research Institute, an average North Korean worker has produced about $2,600 worth of goods and services annually as of 2012, which is smaller to the figure South Korean workers were producing all the way back in 1980. The report also shows that the gap in labor productivity between the two Koreas widened from 7-fold in 1990 to 21-fold in 2012. The number of foreign tourists to Korea is expected to hit a record high of nearly 14 million this year. A report released by the Korea Tourism Organization on Monday shows the number of foreign tourists visiting Korea in the January to September period was over 10.7 million, up over 15% compared to the same period last year. Tourists from China accounted for the largest number of visitors at nearly 4.6 million, or 36% more than last year, followed by Japanese tourists at over 1.7 million. The organization is expecting more than 13.6 million people to visit the country by the end of the year, a 12% jump from the total of last year. Korea's film industry has taken off in recent years and currently ranks as the 7th largest in the world. Today, we focus on where those movies are being shown and watched here in Korea. On this week's Industry Insight, our cultural correspondent Park Ji-won reports on the success of the country's multiplexes at home and how they're expanding abroad as well.
According to the Korean Film Council, more than 80% of the 333 movie theaters across the nation are multiplex theaters. And of those multiplexes, more than 40% are CJ-CGV branches, the #1 movie theater chain in Korea, followed by Lotte Cinema. CGV opened Korea's very first multiplex in Seoul in 1998. Since then, it has brought in a number of innovative features, including the nation's first 3D and 4D screens, as well as Korea's first premium screen called Gold Class in 2001. The cost for this premium seat is 3 times higher than a normal ticket, but you can enjoy free snacks and beverages, as well as this spacious and comfy sofa where you can relax and enjoy the movie. Another key word of their success is cultureplex. CGV branches don't just offer customers premium movie watching experiences. They also provide a mix of things to eat like gourmet popcorn and things to see like exhibitions and even busking performances.
CGV provides better membership benefits compared to other movie chains. There are also a lot of restaurants nearby, and it has a good concession menu.
Lotte Cinema is another major multiplex operator, taking up about 35% of the market. Recently, Lotte Cinema opened Asia's largest multiplex movie theater at Lotte World Mall in southern Seoul, with 21 screens that can accommodate 4,600 moviegoers.
It offers premium facilities with a lot of amenities. The interior is modern and clean.
The new theater also has the world's largest projection screen, which has been recognized by Guinness World Records. Based on the success here, Korea's multiplex chains have advanced into the global market.
About 200 million movie tickets were sold in Korea last year, meaning one person in Korea watched more than 4 films a year, on average. This number is higher than the U.S. figure, so we can say Korea's movie theater industry has pretty much reached full saturation and is seeing its limit. That's why CGV and Lotte Cinema are focusing on expanding their presence in foreign markets.
CGV opened its first foreign branch in Shanghai in 2006. Today, the company has 31 theaters throughout China, 16 in Vietnam and 1 in the U.S. It also has a management contract to operate 12 theaters in Indonesia.
It's really about the movie-going experience, the premium experience of sound, screen, seat, as well as a cultureplex model. Ultimately, those things will work abroad, and that's absolutely part of our strategy. Now, in addition to that, what we hope to do longer term is really focus on the Asian content.
Lotte Cinema also advanced into the global market in 2008, starting in Vietnam.
We opened a theater in Vietnam in 2008, 2 years earlier than in China. Now we are the #2 movie chain in Vietnam, and we aim to be #1 by 2018. By then, we hope to have at least 60 branches in Vietnam and in China, with a goal of raking in some $300 million in annual revenue.
Both CGV and Lotte Cinema say they are focused on China and Southeast Asia for the initial phase of their global investment. But ultimately, they want to expand elsewhere based on things that haven't worked for them here in Korea. Both hope that in the coming decades, their branches that spread throughout the world rake in more revenue than those based here in Korea. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
If you're currently searching for the fountain of youth, you might want to take your mobile phone along with you. A group of local researchers says mobile phone usage is one key to living longer. Our Polly explains why and reports on the other factors to keep in mind as you age.
A research team led by Korean professor Kim Jong-in from Wonkwang University has identified the 4 most important elements for having a long life: national income, health expenditures, mobile phone use, and adequate sanitation. The team studied the factors affecting the survival probability of becoming a centenarian for people ages 70 and over, based on data compiled from 32 nations and obtained from the United Nations Development Program. They say a country's GDP and expenditures on public health are key indicators in the lifespan of the age, as higher figures indicate more elderly people are taking advantage of medical services. The study also showed that people who use their mobile phones regularly were healthier than those who didn't, because the phones allowed them to maintain good relationships through daily communication with friends and relatives. In the area of public health, the study showed that adequate sanitation facilities help prevent the kinds of infectious diseases that could otherwise be fatal to the elderly. The team said these 4 socioeconomic elements appear to have an important latent effect on whether a person over 70 will become a centenarian, encouraging public leaders to improve the country's public health policy. The final report on this study was featured in the online scientific journal BMC Geriatrics. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
Artists generally have a message they want to share with their work, and for the group of artists gathered for an exhibition in Paju, north of Seoul, that message is peace. Our Im Yoon-hee takes us to an exhibition called the Paju Peace Station, which aims to spread awareness about the need for peace on the Korean peninsula.
A grassy field, people casually strolling around. It's a typical scene full of life. Just one problem. They're sitting on a huge, destructive missile. Art has a funny way of casting a different light on perspective, on making people think twice. Like this bright, vibrantly colored soldier, peering through binoculars. A symbol of our current state of wariness, caused by the chasm of separation within the peninsula.
Unfortunately, the condition of our country being separated has become an opportunity for merchandising. Every year, 100,000 people visit Panmunjom, so we want to send a message to them and make them realize there's need for unification. Through art, we are encouraging people to seek peace. So at this exposition, people will get a sense of the efforts needed for peace, while at the same time experiencing the artworks we have created.
A project that's first of its kind and aims to spread awareness of the need for peace within Korea. 2014 marks the inaugural year for the Paju Peace Station. 18 contemporary artists from both Korea and abroad have gathered near the 38th parallel and have put together 20 different works of art, works that embody a message of peace and harmony. Many of them are housed at the Paju Book City in the recently opened Forest of Wisdom Library. Some works even enveloped between the shelves of books. Even the busy walkway is lined with what looks like just a bright yellow barricade, but is actually something with a much deeper meaning. A work of art inspired by an artist's own personal experience.
When you visit an army base, there's a long entranceway full of barricades. I had to weave in and out of them, and of course that takes a lot more time. The experience even made me a little nervous. With that in mind, I recreated the rectangular barricades and filled them with very fluid shapes that float together harmoniously. So as people go through them, they will hopefully realize how precious our freedom is while also seeing the beauty in harmony.
While many people have quite different approaches to finding a solution for peace, the artists here stand united and hope to share their ideas with others. With each artwork, the thousands that pass through will hopefully take a second look and one day share the same vision for peace. Im Yoon-hee, Arirang News.
It's a beautiful Monday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. By the looks of the morning weather conditions, it seems like winter is upon us, and especially after this rain here in the capital yesterday, which brought down the morning lows down to 6.1 degrees Celsius, though it is expected to rise into the high teens later this afternoon. Now, other regions can expect similar daytime highs ranging from the low teens to the low 20s. However, strong winds are expected, so it may feel chillier than expected. Now, those of you over in Gangwon province can expect windy and dry weather conditions, whereas the rest of our nation can expect clear, sunny skies with a good amount of sunshine. Now to our readings for today. Seoul will peak at 17 this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will reach up to 19 and 22 degrees. Now moving over to other regions, Jeju-Hwalan peaks to 18, while Dokdo hits 13, while Mount Gyeonggi a bit higher at 17 degrees. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
Thanks, Michelle. That does it for now. I'll be back with more updates at 6 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.